Subway over-franchises America. In the early 2000s, Subway grew faster than almost any restaurant brand in history. Under co-founder and CEO Fred DeLuca, the plan was simple. Open more stores, everywhere. By 2015, Subway had over 27,000 locations in the United States alone, more than McDonald's, and 44,000 stores globally. For new owners, the deal looked friendly. Startup costs could be as low as $150,000. The brand was famous, corporate promised marketing and support, but the contract hid the problem. Subway offered almost no territorial protection, so another store could open next door. Franchisees had to buy from approved suppliers and pay 8% royalties plus 4.5% ad fees even when sales dropped. Corporate made money opening stores. Owners fought each other for customers. Over time, stores failed. Lawsuits piled up and quality fell. By 2023, over 7,000 U.S. locations had closed. Subway didn't just sell sandwiches. It sold too many keys to the same door. Mars Inc. rejects the E.T. movie deal. In 1981, director Steven Spielberg was finishing a family film called E.T. the Extraterrestrial. He wanted a simple moment. The alien would follow a trail of candy. Spielberg's team approached Mars Inc. asking to use M&Ms and offering a movie tie-in before release. Mars said no. Executives worried an alien might make the candy look strange or unappetizing, and they declined any product tie-in. No deal, no placement. So Spielberg went to Hershey instead. Hershey agreed to use Reese's Pieces and spend about $1 million on cross-promotion. When E.T. released in June 1982, Reese's Pieces sales jumped by roughly 65% within weeks, turning a $1 million promotion into a candy legend. Mars avoided the alien, while Hershey got the sweetest ad in movie history. News Corp overpays for MySpace. In July 2005, News Corporation bought MySpace for $580 million, a shocking price at the time. CEO Rupert Murdoch wanted instant internet relevance, and MySpace looked unstoppable. It was the most visited social site in the world, pulling in more page views than Google and shaping teen culture, music, and online identity. Founders Chris DeWolf and Tom Anderson stayed on to run it. Under News Corp, MySpace was pushed to squeeze revenue fast. Banner ads crowded every page. Pop-ups blocked profiles. Autoplay videos and music fought each other while pages struggled to load. Custom backgrounds and flashing graphics made the site feel heavy and chaotic. Users complained about speed and crashes, but ad impressions mattered more than fixes. At the same time, Facebook was emerging as a cleaner competitor. Pages loaded quickly. Profiles looked boring, but they worked. Users noticed. By 2008, MySpace traffic collapsed, and in 2011, News Corp sold it for about $35 million, which represents a massive 94% loss in value. Pepsi's Soviet Navy deal. In 1959, Pepsi entered the Soviet Union after CEO Donald Kendall famously handed Premier Nikita Khrushchev a Pepsi during a U.S. exhibition in Moscow. The drink became popular, but there was a problem. The Soviet ruble couldn't be traded outside the USSR, so Pepsi couldn't be paid in cash. By 1989, Pepsi renegotiated the deal. Instead of money, the Soviet government paid with assets. Pepsi received 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer, which it sold for scrap through a Swedish company. For a brief moment, Pepsi technically owned one of the world's largest navies. In fact, their fleet of 17 submarines was larger than the submarine forces of countries like India or Norway at the time. This arrangement was part of a partnership valued at over $3 billion, making Pepsi the most widely available American brand in the USSR. Soon after, the Soviet Union collapsed and the deal ended. NBC and Conan O'Brien. In 2004, NBC announced that Conan O'Brien would replace Jay Leno as host of The Tonight Show in 2009, locking in a 5-year succession plan. Conan officially took over on June 1, 2009, but when ratings slipped almost immediately, NBC's 5-year plan turned into a 5-week panic. By late 2009, Leno's new 10 p.m. show was already tanking local news ratings and angering affiliates. In January 2010, NBC tried a risky fix. They decided to move Leno back to 11:35 p.m. and push Conan's Tonight Show past midnight. Conan refused. On January 22, 2010, NBC paid Conan $45 million to leave, including $12 million for his staff, and handed the show back to Leno. NBC didn't just fumble late night. It paid tens of millions to undo its own plan. Bank of America buys toxic mortgages. On January 11, 2008, Bank of America announced it would acquire Countrywide Financial for about $4 billion. CEO Ken Lewis said the deal would make them the largest mortgage lender in the United States. Countrywide brought millions of customers, but it also brought a mess. The company had aggressively issued risky mortgages that exploded when the housing market collapsed. In 2009, Bank of America also inherited toxic exposure from its $50 billion acquisition of Merrill Lynch, compounding the damage. By 2014, Bank of America had paid over $40 billion in legal settlements, including a $16.7 billion agreement with the Department of Justice. The deal was sold as a bargain. It turned into the most expensive cleanup job on Wall Street. Netflix splits DVD and streaming. On July 12, 2011, Netflix announced a major change. CEO Reed Hastings said DVD rentals and streaming would be split into two services, raising the combined price from $9.99 to $15.98 per month. At the time, Netflix had over 25 million subscribers, many of whom still relied on DVDs. Customers were confused and angry. 2 months later, Netflix made it worse by announcing the DVD business would be spun off under a new name, Qwikster, requiring a separate website and login. The plan collapsed almost immediately. By the end of 2011, Netflix had lost about 800,000 subscribers, and its stock price plummeted nearly 75%. Hastings apologized publicly and canceled Qwikster within weeks. Netflix survived and recovered later, but for a moment, it nearly mailed itself out of business. Yahoo sells its Alibaba stake too early. In 2005, Yahoo made a smart move. CEO Terry Semel invested $1 billion for a 40% stake in a fast-growing Chinese company called Alibaba, founded by Jack Ma. At the time, Alibaba was small, risky, and barely known outside China. The investment worked. Alibaba exploded. Then Yahoo got impatient. In September 2012, Yahoo sold half of its stake back to Alibaba for $7.6 billion, calling it a big win. 2 years later, Alibaba went public in the largest IPO in history, valuing the company at $231 billion. Yahoo's remaining shares were suddenly worth far more than what it had already sold. By the time Yahoo exited completely, it had missed out on tens of billions in growth. Yahoo didn't lose money on Alibaba. It just sold the golden goose before it finished growing. Starbucks buys Teavana. On November 14, 2012, Starbucks announced it was buying Teavana for $620 million in cash. CEO Howard Schultz said tea was the next major growth opportunity, and Teavana's hundreds of mall locations would help Starbucks expand beyond coffee. At first, the plan sounded logical. Teavana had loyal customers and strong margins on loose-leaf tea. Starbucks began opening Teavana tea bars and rolling the brand into its stores. But the business model didn't travel well. Teavana depended on long mall leases, high prices, and aggressive sales tactics, just as mall traffic across the U.S. was collapsing. Customers didn't stick around. Sales slowed while costs stayed high. In July 2017, Starbucks announced it would close all 379 Teavana retail stores, effectively admitting the experiment failed. Teavana survived only as a brand on grocery shelves and inside Starbucks cafes. The $620 million bet on mall retail turned into a total retreat. Sony loses Spider-Man merchandising. In 1999, Sony Pictures bought the film rights to Spider-Man from a cash-strapped Marvel Entertainment for about $7 million, as Marvel was still recovering from bankruptcy. Sony gained the right to produce and distribute Spider-Man movies and collect box office revenue, which executives believed was where the real value was. Marvel and Sony initially split the merchandise profits 50-50, but in 2011, Sony was facing a cash crunch. To fund their next movie, they sold their half of the merchandising rights back to Disney for a one-time payment of $175 million. It turned into a billion-dollar blunder. By the late 2000s, Spider-Man was generating over $1 billion annually in retail sales. Disney, who had acquired Marvel for $4 billion, inherited a money machine that never stops. Today, Disney collects those billions without spending a dime on movie production. Sony still gets the box office, but Disney owns the toys, the clothes, and the video games. Sony made the movies, while Marvel made the money that lasted.